my name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel, Savage Reads. I am back with another book wrap-up, so let's just jump into the books. So thank you to the amazing Nikki over at Red Dot Reads. I picked up the book Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier, and I thought this was really fun. So the only one that I'd read, I'm pretty sure I read Rebecca a while, way back when I was younger, and I thought that this had a very similar vibe, like kind of that misty, more creepy, what's going on kind of feeling. This is following our young Mary as she goes off to live with her aunt and uncle at this place called Jamaica Inn, and something is wrong with this inn. They don't really have people who are coming as boarders, and there's, kind of seedy men coming in and out, and what is the secret and what is going on? And so it really built up that creepiness and the atmosphere, so I enjoyed it for that. There were some things in this book that I found very predictable. From the first moment that I was introduced to certain characters, I'm like, oh yes, I know what's gonna happen. I know who the baddie is, I know what's going on, and I thought at the end some of the villain stuff got a little cartoonishly villain-y, and it kind of took me out of it. I didn't really appreciate that. So I watched a review from Debra at Bookin' with Debra, and she had just spot on thoughts about this book. Like, it's got a great atmosphere, an interesting story, but if you want to watch her review, she throws in a little bit of spoilers on who the villain is at the end, but she is so spot on with her criticism of this book. But overall, I enjoyed it. Do I think it was like the best creepy read ever? No, but I enjoyed my time reading this book. Thanks again to Nikki at Red Dot Reads. I will make sure you definitely check out her channel. She always has such good things to say about different books. You should definitely check out her channel. She has such thoughtful reviews, such a great way about talking about books. It gets me to pick up books that I wouldn't normally think about, and that is where I picked up this book. So I picked up Penguin the Magpie, The Odd Little Bird Who Saved a Family by Cameron Bloom and Bradley Trevor Grieve. This one is a true story, and it is a story of a family that goes through a tragedy, and the mother in the family ends up in a wheelchair and unable to do a lot of things for herself. And at the same time, the children in the family stumble across an injured bird, and they take it in, and it becomes a part of their family. This book is a read in one sitting kind of read. It is told through some really beautiful photography. So you look through the beautiful photography, you hear the story. I think the most powerful writing in the book was probably the epilogue, where the mother talks about her own experiences going through something this horrible. When you get the guy talking about it and the pictures, I don't know if it's like as compelling, but that epilogue at the end, the writing was really compelling. So I thought the pictures were really cool, the writing was compelling at the end. Overall, I enjoyed it, but it's definitely not the kind of book that I would normally pick up. Like, it's more of a, I read it as an ebook, and I wished I'd had the physical copy so I could have seen the pictures bigger, and it was a very different kind of book. So I don't really know what to think about this, but I am grateful to Nikki for pushing me a little bit out of what I normally read and trying something a little different. I decided to pick up Ruth Ozaki's debut novel, My Year of Meats. Now, I had only read one book by Ruth Ozaki before this. I read A Tale for the Time Being a little while ago, and I know that I've picked up the Book of Form and Emptiness a few different times, and I've read some of it, but I don't think I've ever actually finished it, and I'm not quite sure why I never finished that book, but I know I've picked it up a few times. But I decided to pick up My Year of Meats. It is following two women. One of the women is working on a TV show that is following American wives and the meats they cook for their family, and this show is being marketed to Japanese women. And so you have the woman that's working on the show. Then you also have the other woman who is a Japanese housewife. Her husband works on the show, and her job is to do kind of a review of the show, fill out a survey, and make all the meets on the show and see how those turn out. And it was kind of an interesting premise, a little bit different. If you want a book that will make you feel like you never want to eat meat again, this is it for you. Definitely gave me some pause on whether I want to actually eat meat, especially like steaks. I was just like, oh, cows, gross, ew. So, I mean, if you don't want to eat meat, this is a good way to start. I felt like as I was starting it out, just remembering A Tale for the Time Being and starting out this book, I really felt like, wow, Ruth Ozeki has a very bleak view of womanhood, and I was like, oh, this just makes me feel a little hopeless here. But I do feel like this book kind of ended up in a more hopeful place, which I appreciated. I like a book that I'm not leaving feeling depressed and depleted and feeling more energized and moving forward, even though some really difficult things happened throughout this book. I really liked the last half of this book. The first half I was like, okay, what's going on at this premise? What's going on? But the last half just had a very close and present sense of danger where I felt very invested and I needed to make sure everything turned out okay, and I was just like on the edge of my seat. So I thought, like, for pulling you in and dragging you along, I thought she did a really great job. Now, just overall, like, it's been a while since I read A Tale for the Time Being, but from what I remember, I feel like this book, I connected with the main characters much more than A Tale for the Time Being. I remember connecting with the like Japanese teenager, but having a hard time connecting with the character Ruth in A Tale for the Time Being. And I feel like My Year of Meats really had had characters that I felt very engaged with. So I thought it was really well done that way. A bit strange in some parts. I ended up giving it like 4 out of 5 stars. There were some things that I just didn't know if were addressed super well, or like I didn't connect to quite as fully, but overall, I thought it was really good, and especially for her debut novel, I thought it was actually a really interesting book. AJ over at AJ Dunn Reads and Writes recommended that I pick up the book Guns, Germs, and Steel: The Fates of Human Societies by Jared Diamond. Now, this was a very interesting look at the history of the world. The idea behind this book is that there are so many different societies around the world, and how did certain societies get more advanced technology, get guns, germs, and steel sooner than other civilizations? What played into that? Was it something innate in the people? What was it? And through this book, you see the situations and the environmental factors that caused certain civilizations in ancient times to have the need for certain advancements. So certain societies didn't need, or it wouldn't have been useful for them to develop writing. It wouldn't have been useful for them to develop farming based on the environment that they were in, based on what was going on around them. So it's very focused on how environment shapes cultures and civilizations. And I thought that it was super interesting, super well done. Like, I really enjoyed it. I thought at some parts a little bit dry, and sometimes a little bit like, okay, but overall, I think it was an interesting look at how societies develop, how different governments form, how different technologies are made, and why. And I thought that as a like history of ancient civilizations moving forward, yeah, it was good. Definitely recommend. And those are the books that I have read the past week or so. If you have read any of these books and have thoughts on them, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear what you think of these. I will be back soon with another book wrap up. And in the meantime, if you want to check out my Instagram, is at Savage Reads Books, and I will see you all on the next one.